everybody to actually get back. Yeah, so good, very good. You all get an A. All right, well, thank you for sticking around. We have two more authors who are going to be speaking to us tonight. Our first is Rory Miller. Rory, where are you? Excellent. Actually, I've heard this before, and I remember talking to Rory a little bit at one point, and this is interesting stuff. Rory is a 17-year veteran of a metropolitan correctional system. He spent 17 years, including 10 as a sergeant with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office in Portland. He was a corrections emergency response team member for over 11 years and team leader for 6. His training has included over 800 hours of tactical training, witness protection and close quarters handgun training, incident command system discipline, and internal investigations, hostage negotiations, and hostage survival. Integrated use of force and confrontational simulation, mental health, and defensive tactics. Rory has designed and taught courses including confrontational simulations, uncontrolled environments, crisis communications with the mentally ill, CERT operations and planning, defensive tactics, and use of force for Multnomah County and other local agencies. In 2008, Rory Miller left his agency to spend over a year in Iraq with the Department of Justice in a program as a civilian advisor to the Iraqi corrections system. A lot of stuff going on over there. Rory's going to talk to us about his book that he has out here. Rory Miller.
Okay, and I'm going to try not to be too shy. Okay, my first book came out in 2008. That was Meditations on Violence. It was traditionally published. Now my mind is just on a complete blank, which it usually does when I start speaking in public, so don't sweat it. Shortly after the book came out, I got asked to do a class for writers. And after that class, it was on violence, how to write realistic fight scenes. The class was pretty popular, and then we did a second one on weapons and wounds. The first class became the first version of Violence Writer's Guide, which was my first e-publishing, first independent. The second edition, 67% more fun, included the second class, more on wounding, more on weapons. And that's the first independently published paperback that I've done. So I'm a little excited about it. I'm going to start reading now, so I don't have to talk, and I'll try to stay close to the mic so that you can actually hear me. I should explain myself and also give an introduction to what you'll get in this little book. My name is Rory Miller, but I've been called Sarge in a jail, Sensei in a dojo, and Abu Orion in Baghdad. Rory's fine. I don't write fiction. I do write fight scenes. I've written some of the most realistic fight scenes ever because they had to stand up in court. Conflict is the core of drama, and much of my adult life is centered around conflict. The good side is I know a lot about real violence. One of the many downsides is I know enough that most fiction is infuriating to read. What follows won't teach writing techniques. If you're a good writer, at least learning to be a good writer, you know more about the nuances of plot and point of view and voice than I do. What I will try to do here is introduce you to the world of violence, to the parts that people don't understand, the part that books and movies get wrong. Not just the mechanics, but how people who live in a violent world think and feel about what they do and what they see done. The psychological, physical, and spiritual reality. Once upon a time, I was sitting on a panel, bashing your way through, writing realistic fight scenes. How many of you have seen that panel at Oricon? Okay, you might remember this. This was several years ago.
Could you read just a little slower?
I will try. Anyway, the moderator, who is a very nice lady, opened the panel by declaring, no one engages in violence except out of great fear, great rage, or great desperation. I do it for money. She almost choked. But we became good friends, so it was kind of cool. In what follows, we're going to go over weapons, how they're used, the mindset of someone who uses a weapon, and the effects. The effects will be the weakest part. I've had bones, especially fingers, broken with blunt objects and been concussed. People have tried, but I've never been successfully stabbed or shot. Shot at? Yeah. Hit? No. So there are some details that would be hearsay if I went too deep, and that's not why you're here. If I go outside my experience, I'll try to let you know. There will be links in many of these chapters. Some will go to pictures or video. They will be graphic. Put that graphic in bold and italic. Watch at your own risk, but there is really no way to just dip your toes in. You will either see a body that's been chopped up with a machete or you won't. There's no sort of way to see it. And that's one of the things that your character should grasp very well. Fiction, for the readers and most of the authors, is the ultimate sort of experience. The reader gets the vicarious thrills of a fight without the pain or the smells or the screams or the consequences. And maybe the author gets that too, but the characters absolutely can't. You and your readers can thrill over two swordsmen weaving a net of impenetrable steel until a feint, a cut, and the hero stands over the villain he has vanquished. Your hero, though, watched the seizure-like activity as the villain died. Watched the twitches and the feet kicking against the ground. Probably, if it wasn't quick, saw the thirst and heard the villain scream. And the hero knows damn well he would scream just the same if he had been a little less lucky. And the hero heard that final rattling, like an aborted snore or breath, and heard the bowels let loose before he smelled it. Safely reading or writing a book, violence can be consequence-free. If it is ever consequence-free for the characters, you have missed everything. Want me to keep going? Okay, so to start it, I needed to establish a baseline. Violence in our culture is treated like a taboo, or at least an aberration. Stylized violence is everywhere, but real information is rare and actively discouraged. In a lot of ways, most modern Americans and Europeans know as much about violence as they learned about sex in junior high school locker rooms. So here's some myths and platitudes and how professionals feel about them. Number one, violence never solved anything. This platitude is so patently and obviously false that it takes a pretty special mental gymnastics to say it, much less believe it. The fact is that some things, especially dangerous things happening very fast, can only be solved by violence. This adage frequently infuriates professionals because sometimes the problem they have solved with violence was their own survival, or the survival of someone they loved. Survival is pretty hard to devalue. The second, violence is the last resort of the ignorant. Only shows the ignorance of the person stating it. It would be an ideal truth in a homogeneous society of wealthy people with equal education. It's one of those ideas that only works if everyone involved chooses to believe it. And the first person to reject the idea will dominate, kill, or enslave the others. It is especially funny because many people who deal professionally with violence are pretty well educated and worldly. To hear such a pronouncement from someone who chooses to be ignorant, maybe unthinking platitudes are the first refuge of the ignorant. Third, violence begets violence. Sort of, but that's kind of like saying that sickness caused medicine. Here's the deal, and it's one of the basic truths. Violence is dangerous and hurts, and there's no guaranteed win. But an act of force is the only thing that can stop an act of violence. If a crowbar is coming at your head, there's no form of negotiation that can help in time. If part of the other guy's definition of a win is to enjoy you broken and begging, there is no win-win. You must understand that not only are there people who enjoy debasing others, they have been very common throughout history, and they are still the norm in certain cultures. Because we live in a society where hunger is rare, and there is a rule of law, and invading armies or bandits stealing food and raping are unheard of, we forget that this level of violence was a norm for most of human history. Pockets of it exist in even the most affluent society, and it can erupt when things start to break down. Want something a little lighter? Okay. That's why they didn't want me to go last, because they didn't want everyone leaving all depressed. Okay. There's a chapter in here on gender differences in violence. So, from about halfway through the chapter, for the record, I fought men who outweighed me by more than 100 pounds, experienced fighters, multiple opponents, and men with weapons. And none have come as close to killing me as the girl who tried to stick a knife in my back. Current ability to breathe is due entirely to a reflection, luck, and reflexes. And none felt as dangerous as a desperate brawl with a crack whore who wanted to gouge my eyes out. Women are dangerous, but they fight very differently than men. To sum up, generally, women have 3 superpowers and 2 super weaknesses when it comes to fighting. If they can get over the weaknesses and use the powers, they can be incredibly formidable and skilled fighters. Weakness number 1. Many have no experience except on the receiving end, and most of the physical violence they've experienced has been from an authority figure. And the authority figure shifted the blame to the girl. This creates a powerful and often freezing shame reaction when a woman gets hit, especially when she gets slapped. Exceptions and fixes. The classic is a woman who grew up with 4 brothers who liked to fight and learned how to play dirty to win. Another exception is my wife, Kay. Kay grew up without brothers and in a peaceful household, but her father was a tough guy, former Soviet bloc military with an interesting assignment. Musician, painter, engineer, and he got her into art and sports. When she decided to take martial arts, she had no preconceptions and no negative conditioning to overcome. The most common fix, and this is writing fixes, is an act of will, the decision to learn how to fight coupled with the right environment. It requires a supportive but not enabling instructor and training venue. People that can teach the women that fighting is fun. Fighting isn't fun. It hurts and scary, but fighting will is incredibly empowering. And increasing ability is fun and satisfying at very deep levels. The training environment must accentuate that aspect. Weakness number 2. Most women have been taught to lose to men. Almost every good female martial artist I know is certain that there are men in her class she can beat, but she lets them win. She's certain that rather than lose to a woman, they will escalate, break the rules, and injure her. It is not worth it to her to injure them, and so she lets them win. This is deep conditioning, and read the dynamic here. Women have been conditioned that it's safer to lose than it is to win. Safer to lose. There are 2 fixes I know of to this. One is dark, but has motivated real people and characters for a long time, and that is losing. A person chooses not to fight as a victim, and the predator plays, and is worse than anything that could have happened had she fought, and she makes the decision never again to be a victim. The other fix is less dark, but often motivated by the first. Find the right trainer or school, where winning is rewarded, where the focus is on making the stronger students, not a stable hierarchy, where the other student and the teachers love the physicality of fighting but aren't doing it to bolster ego. Now, superpower number 1. There's already been a chapter on adrenaline effects, so we have to assume that you know all that. That slow build-up in adrenaline, that means that under an ambush, a woman can fight skillfully. All the deficits of the survival stress response do not necessarily apply, not right away. A woman can fight skillfully in the first seconds of a fight where a guy cannot. It's not easy. Most people need the adrenaline, need to read it as anger or fear in order to let themselves fight. If one can get over that need and fight while still cold, a woman can fight like a machine, like a sociopath. Superpower number 2. When the adrenaline hits, you're stronger, a little faster and insensitive to pain. Unfortunately, in most cases, you're also kind of stupid. How cool it would be if you could plan in advance how to use your strength, speed, and insensitivity. With the long slow build-up of a properly trained woman can do something a man cannot do. She can plan a rage. In order to make this work, you must be able to delay the sequence of events. And superpower 3, social rules. Ask any experienced cop or bouncer about their most dangerous fight. Most will tell you a story about a woman. My most disgusting use of force was with a 300-pound methed up naked woman. The 2 people that have come closest to successfully stabbing me were both women. Women are scary. They don't fight by the rules. It's a 2-edged sword. Because most women were not socialized to roughhouse and play fight, they don't have a lot of experience at it and are often hesitant to engage. On the other hand, most women have never internalized the rules that men use when they fight. A woman's instinctive fighting is out of the box and outside the experience of most men. Men rarely claw, bite, or grab hair and are usually surprised when someone else does. Most non-professional men and many professionals will give clear signs that they are moving towards force. For some women, especially if they use the second superpower, you never see it coming. And men have been taught when to stop. They tend to instinctively honor surrender signals. A woman fights until she either feels safe or she's out of adrenaline, and that can be a very long time. Clearly I had fun with this one. It's, yeah, I said it for writers, I find most fiction infuriating. If Freud said that the 2 most important parts of who you become as a human being are aggression and sex, right? And fiction is based on conflict. It tends to boil down on, anyway, most of it writes like they've never been in a fight and only had sex with a partner once. And that infuriates the crap out of me. So in the quest to have people write more better books that I can read without throwing them against a wall, that's why I wrote this.